All right. So I'm going to play a few clips. This will be considered part two of what I call Combs, Epstein, and Trump, and what they have in common, what they all have in common. Because as the days go by, things keep revealing themselves. More information keeps revealing themselves. Uh, Day by day by day, more and more information keeps coming to the forefront, or more information is starting to resurface from years ago. So, what I'm going to do is play these clips here, and I'm going to start with this one here. I'm going to start with this one. Just take a listen.
Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter. And she said, well, she's 13 as well. So he knew the first time that he saw me. But he comes over mad because I was crying. And he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. Where he basically didn't say took my virginity. He said, I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry and not some pimply little 14-year-old. And I just was like, what if I said, what if I get pregnant? Not even talking to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I was talking to Tiffany. And he said, well, you'll get an abortion then, bitch. And then just walked away.
So, as you just witnessed right there, that was one of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims, one of his alleged victims, as they're all adults now. And these victims that are coming forward, their stories go back to the late 90s and the early 2000s. So that is just one. That's just one. And I'm going to move along here because I have a few things. So I'm going to go here next. Because I'll put this one up just so we can kind of get an idea of where we're going with these stories. So you have these three gentlemen here: Sean Combs, Jeffrey Epstein, and our president, our current president, the Donald. And so as more information is coming to the forefront, the Trump administration is doing everything in its power to divert the attention elsewhere. So as I come out of there, I'm going to put this up on the screen here, because this, and I'm sure many of you have probably seen this. This is a tweet. You know how he likes to tweet at all times of oddball hours of the day and night, and late night and early morning. So, and I'm not going to read all of this, but as it reads, what's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job, in capital letters. She's doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, because that's who his base is, the MAGA base, Make America Great Again. And I don't like what's happening as more and more heat starts to come upon not only the Donald, but his entire administration, especially as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein and all the major players that are a part of it, all the co-stars. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it, all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. And then it goes on to say, why didn't the radical left? Why didn't the radical left lunatics? Because that's his standard language. Radical left lunatics, because it's always uh, right versus left, Dem versus Repub, donkey versus elephant. You know, it's the us versus them mentality. The radical left lunatics. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? Because he's blaming Democrats. And remember that Jeffrey Epstein was first convicted in 2008. In 2008. And he served 13 of 18 months because he was charged with pretty much the same charges, or he was convicted of the same charges as Sean Combs. As Gene Deal said, pimp charges. That's what he was convicted of. 13 out of 18 months. And then he was released, and then he did the same deeds again. So, and that was during the Bush Jr. administration. The Bush Jr. administration. And he mysteriously died in custody, or in his prison cell, allegedly, in 2019 during the first Trump administration. But as always, diverting the attention to blame Democrats. It's all their fault. And nobody in the Republican Party could possibly be a part of this, according to the Donald. Because other presidents, well, another president has been named quite a bit, and that's former President Bill Clinton. And I mean, there may be other presidents on the list. You know, there might be other presidents on the list. Hell, Obama might be on the list for all we know. Joe Biden might be on the list for all we know. We don't know. But we do know that the Donald is on that list. I'm going to put this up right here because in a few of the civil trials, he was named as John Doe. He was named as John Doe 174, right? John Doe 174. This is in court documents. So this can't be disputed. Why aren't any other mainstream news outlets reporting this to remind the MAGA supporters, the Stone Cold MAGA supporters, that couldn't fathom that the Donald could be a part of these escapades? Him, Jeffrey Epstein, Elaine Maxwell, and others. But yeah, he's Doe 174, which means and translates that not only is he on the list, but at least 173 other individuals are on the list. And possibly beyond that, 175, 176, right? So, and oh God, I got so many notes here. MAGA supporters are starting to change their tune because they want answers. Because this was one of the top priorities that the Donald campaigned on. And so MAGA supporters who are really passionate and enthusiastic when it comes to pedophiles or pedophilia. So they're looking for answers. And when the Department of Justice and Head Attorney General Pam Bondi does a complete 180 and tells the general public there are no files anymore. Zero. They don't even exist. There is no list. There is no There are no allegations against Jeffrey Epstein. There are no allegations against the Donald. That's what the talking points are now. All of a sudden, could it be that more and more people are getting closer and closer to the truth, right? So, why the sudden shift? Why the sudden shift in reporting? Why, as the Donald, this past weekend, was at a FIFA soccer tournament where Chelsea, which is in Chelsea, England, won their soccer game or won their tournament, and the Donald was on the stage stealing their shine because he knew that the cameras were on them, so he had to be a part of it. So he can try to convince or attempt to convince the entire world how much the world loves him, including these sports figures from Chelsea, which I already knew was going to happen because this is the Donald's MO. This is his modus operandi. This is just what he does. He has to be in the spotlight, and nothing else will do. Nothing else will do. And this is why they keep every time they meaning the media, anyone in the mainstream media or cable news media, ask him or his attorney general, Pam Bondi, questions regarding Jeffrey Epstein. If you notice how their body language changes and how they get so defensive and how they answer, again, diverting the questions into different directions to keep the people's brain and mind in limbo. So you have to and I'm just looking at all my notes because I have so many things here. Where am I going to go next? Actually, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here because I've brought this up a few times and I've been meaning to show this clip here. Here it is. So I'm going to show this clip here, and many of you may have seen it already, but many, if not most of you, probably haven't seen it. Probably haven't seen it. So I'm going to play this right here.
The film that Donald Trump tried to block from being released was the big winner at the CSAs, The Apprentice, which is all about Trump's early years in real estate. It was a co-production between Canada, Denmark, and Ireland. The film's star, Sebastian Stan, took the win for his performance. Co-star Jeremy Strong also won earlier, and the film won the Best Motion Picture. Now, the producer, during his winning speech, talked about pushing back against Trump.
The most powerful person in the world tried to squish us, and they failed. They failed. Our movie shows how the young Donald Trump amassed wealth and power by finding a dilapidated building and slapping his name on it. As president, he's doing the same thing with the economy. We'll see how that works out. But now he wants to slap his name on this country.
All right. So as you just saw in that clip right there, because most people here in America don't even know that that movie exists. And the few people that do know that it exists, like myself, because I've seen the movie and it's a great movie. But again, how come it wasn't promoted here in the States? How come it wasn't promoted here in the States? No one promoted it. None of the cable news outlets promoted it. Fox News didn't promote it. CNN didn't promote it. MSNBC didn't promote it. Newsmax didn't promote it. None of the news outlets promoted the movie, The Apprentice, which is very telling about how and why the Donald has become who he's become. Like they said, from his early days in media, his early days. And the co-star reminds me of Stephen Miller, the attitude that they take when it comes to how law is interpreted, how the law is interpreted, and making sure that they keep everything in the affirmative. Everything is positive, which is why the Donald uses the language that he uses. Everything is fantastic. Everything is perfect. Everyone's doing a great job. Everything is great. We have the greatest administration on the planet. These are his words. He has to keep everything in the affirmative because in the movie, he was taught, or in his life, he was taught very early, admit nothing, ever, ever, never admit defeat, ever. And so this is what you see as the days transpire, as more and more evidence comes down the pipeline. So I'm going to put up a few more slides here. So I'm going to go here because I'm going to go to this one here. Now, this is a picture here many of you may have seen before, but this is the Donald with his current wife, Melania, Sean Combs, who was just found guilty on 2 counts of the same counts that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted upon, trafficking over state lines for prostitution. And then you see next to him, it looks like Naomi Campbell. And then next to him, you see the Reverend Al Sharpton, who's always been a questionable character, possible FBI informant, possible. And then on the very end, Russell Simmons, who has had heat on him as well, which is why he's suddenly moved to Bali, Indonesia. And that's where he resides. And that's where many of these alleged perpetrators in the industry, that's where they've gone to get uh, uh, advisory from Russell Simmons, who's been under scrutiny as well for many of the same allegations. And by the way, once again, Sean Combs, and this is in court testimony, Sean Combs had some of his, quote, freak offs, end quote, at the Trump Towers. So the Donald and Pam Bondi didn't know that. Oh. And when the shit hits the fan, they all claim that they don't know each other. Like this here. There's our current president, again, the Donald. There's his wife, Melania. There's Jeffrey Epstein, who's no longer with us, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison right now. And from what we're seeing now, more evidence, she's willing to speak, especially if the Department of Justice is claiming that there are no files that exist. So Ghislaine Maxwell is like, why in the freak am I here in jail? Why am I here? I should be let go and free. If there's no list, if no one has been a part of this, if none of this existed, none of this ever happened, she's claiming she should be out of prison or at least given a retrial. Elaine Maxwell, who emphatically, allegedly, knows all the names, including the Donald, number 174. And she knows all of this. She knows all of this. And lastly, I'm going to go here. This is a clip here. I'm going to show this clip. Let's see here. Where's that clip that I had here? I just had a clip of, here it is right here. So I'm going to play this here, and many of you may remember this clip, but I'm going to play it because it's very telling of guilt. Guilt. So I'm just going to play this here.
21 statement that's marked as Exhibit 20. You say, and this is the Litvin tweet, I never met this person in my life.
Yes.
Sir, you're saying that at the time you made the statement that's in DJT 20, you were not aware of ever having met Ms. Carroll. You have since seen a photograph that shows you with Ms. Carroll on a receiving line.
Along with a lot of other people.
You have in front of you a black and white photograph that we've marked as DJT 23. And I'm going to ask you, is this the photo that you were just referring to?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And do you recall when you first saw this photo?
At some point during the process, I saw it. That's, I guess, her husband, John Johnson, who was an anchor for ABC. Nice guy. I thought, I mean, I don't know him, but I thought he was pretty good at what he did. I don't even know who the woman, let's see, I don't know who, it's Marla.
You say Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla, yeah, that's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here. Oh, is
The
that,
person
oh,
you just pointed to was
oh, I
Eugene
see.
Carroll.
Who is that? Who is this?
And the woman on the right is your then wife,
I don't know.
Ivana?
This was the picture. I assume that's John Johnson. Is that Carol? Because it's very blurry.
As you just saw that clip right there of the Donald's deposition, because as many MAGA supporters may or may not know, that he lost at least 2 times. Actually, it's more than that now. He's lost in a trial of his peers with a jury of his peers, lost 2 court cases as he's been found guilty or liable of sexual assault against Elizabeth Jean Carroll back from 1996. And the photo that they showed there, I'm just going to put it up on the screen here so we all can see it loud and clear. So as you can see here, there's E. Jean Carroll, and there is her husband at the time, John Johnson, who's a well-known and well-respected news anchor at that time. And on the far right, you see his first wife, Ivana, which is another reason why I encourage all of you to watch the movie The Apprentice. Yeah, watch the movie The Apprentice. It's very telling, and it goes into depth about his relationship with his wife, Ivana, and how traumatic it became for her as his first wife. But there you see E. Jean Carroll there, and the Donald, because the picture was blurred, as he says, the picture's blurred, but it doesn't look blurred here. He thought that was his second wife, Marla Maples. Marla Maples. As he now owes E. Jean Carroll over $80 million. Over $80 million. And E. Jean Carroll, she's always said, as you saw in that clip, the woman reaching her arm over trying to point to who's who, that was his attorney, Alina Habba. And E. Jean Carroll has always said how in court, how the Donald was belittling her in court, belittling her. And all the quote Stone Cold MAGA supporters that believe that the Donald is the Prince Charming to women, right? You know, the man that said you could just grab them in the pussy. And that was in that same deposition because E. Jean Carroll's attorney asked him about it. So will Marjorie Taylor Greene come forward and tell the entire world that Republicans as well are the party of pedophiles? Because she went on television and said that Democrats are the party of pedophiles. Well, I think it would be safe to say that Republicans are equally guilty. Equally. Are you willing to go on television and say that? I mean, you've already come forward to say that our tax dollars are going to victims from government officials and their sexual misconduct against women. We're paying it with our tax dollars. That's what you said. And I've posted it and put it up on a previous episode months ago. So none of this is up for debate. None of this is up for debate. So for those of you that are still, after all of this, and there's more that's coming forward, whether it's E. Jean Carroll, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether it's Virginia Giuffre, you know, who just mysteriously passed away from alleged suicide. All of these allegations are starting to cave in on the Trump administration. You know, I talked about Dan Bongino, who's talking about resigning, right? There's so many people that were in such support of the Donald and his entire administration. And now, because of all the information that's coming forward, they're changing their tune. Now, why is that? Why? And why is the Donald so defensive every time that someone asks him about Jeffrey Epstein and his involvement? How come Pam Bondi gets defensive? You know, defensive postures mean a lot, right? They mean a lot, especially when it comes to psychology or psychiatry, right? So we're going to see how all this pans out in the days and weeks and months to come. Subscribe, click thumbs up, and until next time.